Hello. Hello. Good afternoon. Today is Friday, March 13, 2026, and my name is Reynaldo Javier Aguiar Marcano. And this is demo D125, 125. So for today, this is I'm gonna, I'm going to apply the same TTP that they applied to me on the trial of KP George. So I'm going to say that this is going to be a very administrative demo. Very boring, very, very long. Nothing really interesting here, just a lot of administrative stuff that, nobody really wants to hear. So that's going to be this demo. It's going to be very administrative and very boring. One second. Just need to do something here real quickly. Okay. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I'll cut the blank spaces. One sec. Yes. So this is going to be a very boring, very administrative demo. Okay. Very long, nothing really interesting. But I have a few talking points, a few things that I would like to record. So the title of this demo is, sometimes I give titles to that, right? So the title of this demo is going to be The South Asian Daniel King Everett and Other Notes. So this Daniel King Everett character is a very interesting character because so his house is in front of the house of Robert Mueller at Lake Pond Estates, right? And he has the name marker King, which, it's a marker of importance, of royalty, right? In this network that they have, in this parallel society. And I know many operatives that have this, that are important, right? That have this king, or, it could be in any language, right? It could be Rey, it could be royal, it could be imperial, but there are things that imply royalty, right? It could be a symbol, like a crown. Like, for example, when the child was kidnapped, the car that was transporting the child for the first month was a child supposedly donated or lent or borrowed from a church that has a king, a crown in the symbol. That it's on that church is very close to Lake Pond Estates. I can't recall the name right now, but yeah, it's documented in the book and in the website. Yes, so Daniel King Everett, right? So Daniel King Everett is interesting because, he's not in that house anymore, right? But, the real Daniel King Everett. But back in 2024, he was doing this, constant harassment, right? Like every time I went, and this is recorded in multiple videos that are posted in the Google Cloud Pocket. Every time I went out of the house, he would come to try to intercept the phone. And if I came back to the house waiting for him to pass, he would then make a U-turn and come back, to that level of harassment. I'm going to get it, right? That was his motto, right? But anyhow, right? Something interesting happened yesterday, March the 12th, and this is recorded on the videos that are on the Google Cloud Pocket. What happened was that the Chinese, I described this before, right, where they take these safe houses that are owned by this Communist Party of China in the US, and they use them as safe houses, and they rotate the agents in shifts, right? So what happened yesterday was that the agent that was coming to that house was coming to work his shift, right? They work in families, right? Like they bring, in this case, it was 3 people. It was a couple of South Asian operatives and a teenager, right? I imagine it's the daughter, right? So they were coming into the property, and they parked the car outside, trusting that I was going to do my usual routine where I, make a right when I come out of my home to leave the Lake Pond Estates neighborhood, right? So they trusted that, and they left the car parked outside. But of course, I'm aware of that house, and I'm aware that this is an important property for multiple reasons. And because they have this RV park outside. That RV is an antenna, basically, right? To catch the downlink, because it aligns perfectly with the orientation of the antenna, where the signal would spill, or could spill, right? So because they have that RV parked in the driveway, they had to park the car outside to still have, angle of view to my home. But that made it so that the agents had to walk. So I took the opportunity and I drove in that direction. I recorded the man with the cameras in the car. And surprise, surprise, he's South Asian. I'm saying surprise because the original Daniel King Everett is Russian. Well, I'm not gonna say it's Russian. I haven't seen his passport, but he's at least Eastern European, right? And I know this because I saw him multiple times, right? But yesterday, the Daniel King Everett was South Asian, right? So this is funny because, at this point, they're getting so sloppy that they're not even maintaining consistency because before they would do this when they switched the agents would look alike, right? I mean, I could tell it was not the same person, but you had to really look, like they were more or less the same height, more or less the same complexion, same hair color, like if you look at them from 100 feet away, you wouldn't know, right? But if you have a camera and you zoom in, you can tell that it's a different person, right? By the height, there were small differences, but at this point, they are replacing Russians with people that look Korean or Filipino, right? I don't know exactly what, my resolution on that part of the world in terms of discerning nationalities is not very good. But I know he's South Asian, right? Because he has Asian features and the color of his skin is not fair. It's more on the darker side of things. So the Daniel King Everett yesterday was South Asian, right? And that is very funny. But again, like that house is important. I mean, this has to be an important agent, right? Because nobody would be trusted to occupy that safe house that is in front of Robert Mueller's house, like for obvious reasons, right? Robert Mueller is a person with, that has a level of access that very few people in this network have, and they're not going to let nobody be in that house, right? So this is an important. Now, interesting, when he saw that I turned around and I got him like, a square, like, squarely in the camera. Like I got the car pointing at him, right? Like the same thing they do to me. It was a bit satisfying, to be honest. But when he saw that, right, he came outside and he started looking at the camera, like being upset. He's upset, right? So you can see the face, you have a frontal view of the face, basically, right, of this important agent. So I think that's a very good data point, and it's in the Google Cloud storage bucket. Now, one thing I've noticed is that the three of them were carrying backpacks, right? And this is because they work in shifts, right? But this is interesting. I'm guessing here. Like, I don't know. I didn't see the contents of the backpacks, but I'm guessing that it was clothing because of, like when you put things in a backpack, if you put clothing, the texture of the backpack, when it's full of things, it's very different than if you put books or if you put something else, right? Like it looks like it has a cushion texture to it, right? That's the way the three backpacks look, and they were small backpacks. So I imagine that if I was to guess, I would imagine these people are doing shifts of 2 or 3 days, right? No more than that, because of the amount of clothes they were carrying, right? With them. And the three of them had these backpacks. So that was interesting. Yes. 1 second. So I have my notes with me, right? I'm gonna be doing this thing today where I'm gonna be reading from my notes. Because as I said, this is going to be a very long, very boring demo. Nothing really interesting. Okay. So the next topic I have is this actually very, very boring. 1 second. Yeah, so I made a demo yesterday, I think it was, that I called Altamira demo. But this is not published because it contains a bit of a sensitive information. So what I did, I put it on the Google Cloud storage bucket, okay? And it's in there. I duplicated it in a couple of places, actually, because of how important this is. I believe, right, according to my data and the technologies that I've developed. So interesting. Okay. So, but although this is not public, right? One thing I should tell you, right? The observations I have for today are more, I would say, second order observations. Okay, so this means that to really get, the the full context of what I'm saying, you probably need to go back and check the thing that I'm referencing. What I mean is, these comments that I'm going to make today, almost all of them are things that are expansions on things that I've said before, right? And I cannot say all those things again because this demo would take a day, right? I will have to be recording this for 20 hours. So I'm not going to get into that path. I'm going to assume that, if you're interested in the topic, you're going to go back and look at the original comments, right? That they are in the book. There's a book that contains all the transcripts of all the 124 demos. So if you see something, if you hear something that interests you, like, I would recommend looking it up. Look in the context in that book that has all the transcripts. And all these books are free. Like, you can download them from the YouTube channel. The link is in there. So this is about the Altamira demo that is not published in there, really. So you have to be working for law enforcement to really understand what I'm saying, right? Because I imagine they were gonna, seize this bucket and get everything, right? So that's what I'm betting on. So anyhow, about the Altamira demo, right? So on the Altamira demo, you will see that I talk about an agent whose name is Joe Alvarado. Right, and he has a distinctive vehicle that has special markers that I describe in that demo. And his house on the backyard has a point-to-point connection. A point-to-point antenna, it's an antenna, telecommunications antenna, that you can think about it as a very focused flashlight, right? It transmits in one direction only, and the beam is very narrow. It doesn't spill very much in any direction. So this is very secure, okay? But the trade-off is that you have to have direct line of sight to the other antenna that is going to receive the transmission, and the range is limited. It's not infinite. It's not over the horizon, right? Because if the horizon gets in the way, then you don't have view, right, of the antenna, of the other antenna. And how much range you have depends on the altitude of the tower, because of the curvature of the Earth at that latitude where you are, right? So it's a complicated math, right? If you want to really know what's the range. But he has one of these antennas, right, that are very secure, very, very secure. It's one of the most secure methods of communications that could be, right? Because to intercept it, you will have to climb into a similar altitude and get in the exact path of the transmission, right, with an interception device. So it's not easy to intercept this thing. So this agent has one antenna in the back, right? And I left it at that in that demo Altamira, which was on March 12th, 2026. So, but what I didn't say in that demo is, I didn't say the name of the agent is Joe Alvarado. I think he might be Venezuelan. And he was co-clustered with another agent that was following me like a year ago in a similar vehicle. But there's a series of other things that I discovered after I came home that are not recorded there, so I'm going to say them here, right? So one is the obvious question, right, for such secure communication channel when you find it is, okay, so where is the other antenna, right? Because you need two antennas of this to make a pair, right, to be able to communicate, to send and transmit something, right? So the obvious question is, where is the other antenna? That's number one. The other question is also, who lives in the other side of the antenna, right? Because the antenna is in the middle of two houses. And so one house belongs to Joe Alvarado, and the other house belongs to a doctor by the name of Nguyen Hong Can Thi. THI is the last word. But, be aware that the Chinese do this thing where they transpose the components of a name or a phone number, right? So I'm guessing those are the components of the name, but it's some variation of those words, right? Probably it's not in the same exact order. So I looked it up, and it seems like there is a person that matches all these components, but in a different order, and is a pediatrician in a hospital here in this area. This hospital is marked in the geo-index of these people, right? That the Venezuelan intelligence and the Chinese intelligence is using to do this to everybody. So this is concerning, right? Because of the way they target children. And remember, I'm not a priest talking about marriage, right? I don't know if it translates well in English. We say this in Spanish because in at least the type of religion that we have, I mean, the type of Catholicism that is practiced in Latin America, the priests never get married. Like I know, like here, pastors get married, right? But in Latin America, that's not the case. It's not, that doesn't happen, right? At least in the Catholic Church in Latin America. So when we say that, what we mean is that, I'm not saying this, I'm not guessing, I'm telling you this out of experience because I've lived it, right? So because of the way they target children, like for example, Dr. Cara, what is her name? Cara Chani Carter, she administered a vaccine to my son when he was only 12 weeks old, and then he diagnosed a severe respiratory affliction. And then she misdiagnosed him with an hemangioma, which is a benign growth, and she wanted to put him under full sedation to do an exploratory procedure. Imagine that, right? But for something that was obviously triggered by the vaccine that she herself gave him, right? So, when I see this, a pediatrician having this, point-to-point antenna to somewhere, it's concerning. It's really concerning, right? So if authorities get this, please, I beg you, see if this is something, right? But it doesn't end there, right? So after I realized this, well, I started looking for the other half of this antenna, right? Where is the receiver, right, or the transmitter, right? In case this person is, I don't know if this person is relying orders or receiving things, right? So there's two places that I identified as potential endpoints, right, for this communication link. I'm going to tell you about the two of them, okay? Point number one is an Islamic temple that is located on the other side of, so this place, this first antenna is located on one side of the Bush Park here in Katy. Or, well, I think this is Harris County, right? So the second half is on the other side, about 6 miles away or 6 kilometers away, on the other side of the Bush Park in Katy, right? And it's a temple that it's an Islamic temple. But that's not what's interesting. I mean, it's interesting because, we know that Iran is, the Iranian regime is heavily involved in this, right? But beyond that, it's interesting because next to the church, but on the perimeter of the park, right? So basically shielded by this church, by this temple, there is a house of a prominent attorney, right? Surprise, surprise. It's a lawyer, right? Because we know that lawyers are a big part of this thing, right? So this attorney is an attorney by the name Ren with two N's, RENN, space, G as in golf, space, Nielsen. It's a misspelling of Nielsen. So it's, I think it's Neilson or NEI. And so I can't recall if it's first the E or the I, right? But it's a prominent person. Like if anybody in the law circles or the DOJ would know who this person is. I'm going to tell you why. So this is an attorney that is registered with the bar of the Supreme Court of Texas. And he litigates cases in front of the Supreme Court of Texas, right? And remember, the Supreme Court of Texas, all of them, including the clerk, have been involved in this campaign of keeping the child kidnapped. And I've reported them to the OFAC, right? I have no doubts. But so this attorney litigates a lot of cases in front of them, right? And he claims, and actually, let me find the actual. We have the things here. Right? Let me stop here first, because this guy is obviously enjoying the conversation. This blue car over here. KHB 7657. Okay. Let me see. 1 second. I'm just trying to get this. To do this right? Yes. So he's from a firm called Baker Botts. So BAKER BOTTS. Okay, and his last name is spelled Neilson, as in Nicole. Ren Nielsen. So as I was saying, right, he litigates cases almost exclusively with the Supreme Court of Texas. But these are not, kidnapping cases. I mean, children kidnapping. No. He's on different branch of the organization. And his house, let me tell you, his house is marked in the GEO index with almost 1 million points. So he's very prominent in this network. I'm not guessing. It's not just a location, right? It's not just that he has a straight line of sight to this interesting antenna. It's not that only. Like his house is marked. The house is worth over $3 million. Right? It's on the border of this park, shielded on one side by the church and on the other side by the park. Right? It's impossible for the FBI to intercept anything he talks about. Right? Impossible. Well, I'm guessing. Like I don't know. Maybe the FBI has things that I don't even know, etc. But anyhow. So he litigates these cases in front of the Supreme Court of the United States, but these are very interesting cases. These are cases. These are corporate tax law cases. Okay, and he makes I saw somewhere that he makes a claim that he has an uncontested knowledge of the tax law, corporate tax, like on Revolt, something like that. Like he makes a bold claim like that when he is advertising, his firm products. Or services. He claims he has a 98% success or something along those lines, 97% success, which is true. I mean, by looking at all this, you no wonder why, right? But anyhow, the cases he litigates are interesting because he basically represents corporations recovering taxes from the state, right? So basically, the corporations sue the state of Texas, and they get back taxes, or maybe even the federal government. I don't know, right? I haven't read the cases, right? But these are cases that he represents companies like oil companies, of course, and healthcare companies, right? And he gets for them refunds in the orders of tens of millions of dollars. Some cases even hundreds of millions of dollars in refunds in taxes, right? So his job is basically to get money back from the government for these corporate entities like Xerox, what's the other one? One of the major oil service companies. I think it's Halliburton, right? I have the list, and I put the list, and I put all this information in the pocket, in the Google Cloud Storage pocket. But so this is an attorney, right? That is part of this network that is getting hundreds of millions of dollars from the government and putting them back in the pockets of these corporations, right? That are heavily marked in the same GEO index where his own house is marked, and where the justices that are in the Supreme Court of Texas have the master plan communities marked with sharing their own names, marked in the GEO index. So it's no wonder he has the 98% success rate, right? That he claims. And of course, it's true. It's probably true, right? That he has that success rate. But I imagine that's the mechanic of how he gets that success rate. But it gets more interesting, right? The second candidate point that I found that could be a communication point to this antenna is, imagine this, is the National Guard base that is on the Bush Park. It's also around 6 miles away from this antenna, okay? So, this tells me that the range of that link, and I haven't done the math, right? But, knowing the altitude of the tower, I can probably figure out if this is around 6 miles, right? But the two candidate places are around 6 miles, 6 miles away from the tower. So that is on itself very, very interesting. Okay, 1 second. Yes. But here I noticed something interesting, right? So behind this mysterious antenna that Joey Alvarado has, there is a lot of land, a small lot of land that is a triangle that is colored differently. Like that patch of land has a different color than the rest of the land in that area. Okay. And so it's a triangle, right? Imagine that there's a triangle behind the antenna. I wish I could show you here, but I'll try to overlay this map on top of the of the audio, right, to show you what I mean. So this antenna has a triangle behind, right? And on the other side of the antenna, just across the highway, a few meters ahead, there is a similar triangle, right? It's a similar patch of land that is also triangular, but this one is green. And if you join them together on one of the sides, they point straight, but it's impressive. Like the precision is amazing. It points that line that these two patches of land that are triangular form, that basically pass by the antenna, basically connect. If you trace an imaginary line between these two patches of land, passing through that antenna, it basically, that imaginary line connects this antenna with that military base of the National Guard, right? So, I mean, this is a hypothesis, but it could be, I'm saying this because it could be a signal for detection. I imagine what the Chinese are doing is that they're marking the directionality of the links with land. This way, they don't need to have a database anywhere to understand what this thing is connecting to, right? So, I mean, so they can route the traffic, right, programmatically via software, but without having to keep a state in a database. Basically, the database is the land. The planet is the database that they're using to mark the directionality of these links that are important. But these are not very common links, right? These are very extremely rare. To give an idea, right? Joe Alvarado, his house, has a score in the GeoIndex of 8 million points. This is unprecedented. Like, to give you an idea, Diosdado Cabello has 2 million points, right? So this gives you an idea of the importance of this antenna for the Chinese. So these links are not common, right? But when they place them, they mark the directionality with these triangles. That's my theory, right? Or with could be other shapes, but there is a patch of land of a particular shape and another patch of land on the other side of the antenna, and if you connect them together, it tells you where it goes, right? So this tells me that at the very least, they are using this to extract data from the National Guard, at the very least, right? That's the least concerning scenario here. So, that's interesting. So here, I'm going to make a small pause. And I'm going to transition a little bit more to this campaign I'm doing of the... So basically, I realized, right, what I'm doing, really, it seems to be like it's... I mean, I didn't put a name to this, right? But if I think about it, it looks to me like an embargo, right? I'm basically trying to impose an embargo on the Communist Party of China, a technology embargo using patents, right? Which is ironic because they've been using patent law to steal the world blind for 30 years. And it's funny that if this is what gets them at the end, it would be really, really ironic, right? So I hope this is the case. But I want to tell you a bit more about my patent embargo, right? So I just received, I'm going to show this to the camera in case the authorities ever see this. So this is the printed book, right, that has the first 22 patents. I mean, this version of the book doesn't have the last 11 that I talked about yesterday, but it has the first 22 patents in the portfolio of this embargo, right, that I'm trying to impose on the Chinese Communist Party. And you can see here that the ISBN is 978-147-148-1296. So, I'm showing you this, so you see that this is a printed book, to further anchor, the inventions, right? Beyond the patent applications, now they are also printed in the book. I mean, this book contains the patent applications with the patent application numbers and everything, the receipts, right, and the payments and everything for the patent applications. So it's a protective publication, right? Because I know the way the Chinese operate, right? So that's about that. But also on that topic, right? So I as I mentioned in the previous demo, I sent letters to the Department of Defense and 2 letters to the Securities and Exchange Commission. And I have to tell you, I think I got them with this, right? I didn't know this, but I did some research after, and I think I got them. The reason is because I didn't know this, but apparently because one of these letters went to the Pentagon, right, and it got delivered just a few minutes ago, right, like an hour ago. And I didn't know this, but so in the Pentagon they have this. They have this system. They have a deep integration with FedEx, and I ship them via FedEx. So the minute the person at the FedEx office enters the address of the Pentagon or the zip code even, the packet gets flagged, right, and it gets routed through a different sorting facility and it's a different logistics channel, to avoid precisely that the Chinese or other malicious actors get the packages, right? So I think it's this is pretty safe to assume that it will get there. And also they scan them. I mean, when it's letters, they scan the contents and they get it uploaded to an internal system in the Pentagon, right? Which I imagine, I don't know, right? I don't have visibility into this, but I imagine it gets automatically converted into text and put into a some sort of information retrieval system, right? Like something like what Goldman Sachs had, right? Well, like what Majur was building. So, I mean, I think I got them, right? Because if this is in some sort of internal retrieval system within the Pentagon, the patent applications and the allegations I'm making, I mean, they cannot tamper with it or delete it or, I feel silly because I didn't think of this before. I could have done this before, right? But to be honest, if you think about it, right, if this is what gets them, if this is what awakes interest in the government in stopping the Chinese and what they're doing, imagine really, like, what this means really, right? I guess what I'm trying to say, right? Imagine for a second that I succeed, right, in this campaign, in this embargo, right, that I'm trying to impose. If this is what gets the Chinese, what this means really is that to succeed, getting information to your own government, the barrier is that you have to basically make a world-changing invention that has applications in defense, right? So you can send something to the Pentagon that could be looked at, right? Because otherwise the Chinese will stop your mail, will block your reports, will do all these things to stop you, right? As they've been doing to me for the last year, right? Sorry, 1 second. Yes. Sorry, I got disconnected for a second. Yes. Okay. So that's what it means, right? That you have to invent something that could affect the landscape of defense in such a way that it could get the attention of the Pentagon, right? That's what it means. To be able to overcome this blockade, right, of the Chinese. 1 second. Here's where the gray vehicles are. This is interesting. Oh, I have to change this, right? 1 second, okay? I'm just having a little bit of a technical difficulty here with the cable. Okay. Yes, so this is an interesting neighborhood. It's full of gray vehicles. It's only gray and white. Like, it seems like they don't like any other color. Yeah. Yes, so that thing that I'm saying, right? That to get past the blockade of the Chinese, in your own country, you have to invent something that can change the landscape of technology and defense. It's profound because it means that the way they're obstructing justice is so immense in this country or in all countries really. The barrier for somebody to defeat that is very high. So this is funny, right? As I drive, they all move the cars. So I don't get the plate. That's what he wants to do, this black truck over here. He's basically hiding his plate. I bet you that he doesn't have a plate on the front, see? And he has the flag, but he has it stored in the garage. And so that's an important house. Let's see what house that is. Now, this area is interesting because they removed the entire area from Google Maps. So, all the surrounding areas have Google Street View photos, except this area. This area doesn't have any Google Street View photos, right? So he's gonna get behind the car, underneath the car, right? So I cannot record him. So it's 19718. That's the house of that agent, and this is on Quarter Horse. Note the equestrian theme in the name of the street, right? So that's an important agent. Yeah. So, but what I wanted to tell you is that I think I got them because I think this is digitized. I mean, the letters that I sent, and the SEC also uses the same, the same pipeline for shipments of private couriers that the Pentagon uses. So it's very unlikely that they stopped it before it got there. But now I have to tell you. So I recommend authorities to come to this neighborhood. Like, this is an interesting instance. This is more like operative, on the ground kind of people, right? And it looks like a new development. They're still building the houses, right? So I imagine what they're doing is that they're moving the important people here, out, like far away from where I can get them with the cameras, right? That's why I'm here today. So this is going to be an important agent, this house that is not finished yet. But this guy is working on it. Lima Charlie Kilo 7192. I imagine he's putting the microphones and everything. Because they wire every single house, right? I mean, these agents, they don't have privacy either. Don't think that it's only the targets, right? They listen into everybody's conversation. It doesn't matter how high up you are. I imagine they also bought Diosdado Cabello, right? I mean, the Chinese. So anyhow, but here I want to tell you something interesting. I think at this point I have high confidence. I've seen this, from a long time ago, but I hadn't said it, but I'll say it now. I think I have high confidence on this at this point. So there's a couple of TTPs that they use at FedEx, especially at the one in the airport where I drop these packages. And as I explained before, I do this to minimize the number of hops that the package has to travel, right? So if I leave it at the airport, it's already feet away from the plane, right? So they do two things here. And the first one I want to mention is kind of new. This I noticed yesterday. And the first time I went there, I checked for this and I didn't see these holes. So this is what they did. This area, the shipping center, right, of the FedEx that is on JFK Boulevard next to the airport. This shipping center is small, very small, and it has in the corner 2 small counters where you fill the forms and everything, right? The first time I went there, I saw and I checked the ceiling to see if I could see any cameras or anything like that, right? To see if they could see the addresses or if they can read the packages or the letters, right? And I didn't see any holes on the ceiling or anything. But yesterday, when I went there are 3 big holes on the ceiling. And so the ceiling is a ceiling, I don't know what to call that in English, but in Spanish we call it a cielo raso. It's the kind of that fake ceiling that looks like, I don't know what even to call that material. I don't know. In Spanish, it's anime. It's a white material that it's the same material that those containers that you take to the beach with, ice, for example, are made. Those that they sell at the gas stations. It looks like that, right? But it's not really the ceiling. It's a fake ceiling. In that fake ceiling, they put 3 holes right above these 2 counters, right? And the distance between the fake ceiling and the actual ceiling is very large. It's probably, I couldn't measure it, but it looks like, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet, right? So this makes it so that you cannot see what is inside of those holes. All you can see is a black hole. I imagine that inside of those black holes, there is cameras, right? And what they're doing is recording whatever is in that content, right? So when you're filling the forms, they see who you're sending the package to. And then that gives the Chinese an edge to intercept them, right? Either in transit or once it gets to the destination. Or if the contents of the letter you're sending are visible, then they will see what you're sending, right? So this is in the FedEx at the airport. So those are those 3 holes over there, right? The second TTP that's one TTP, right? That's one way of intercepting the package. The second thing, because I noticed the holes, what I did, I made it so I did not let anything visible to those holes, right? I covered the addresses and everything, right? As I was doing my thing in there. Yeah, so this guy is very interested in tracking me, right? He was in his driveway when I entered the neighborhood, and now he is here. And he has one of those interesting red plates. Bingo. Let's get the plate. And I think he got himself trapped here, right? This is I think this is a dead end street, so he will have to turn around. Okay, so this is so Umbrella Ramo Papa Charlie 08 with a heart. It's a Texas plate, vanity. URPC 08. So this is the pattern of the plates that have a number at the beginning. I don't know if it's an O or a 0. It could be a 0. URP08 or URP08. I don't know. And it's a Lincoln black SUV. Large SUV. It looks like like an Escalade, but it's not Escalade. I think it's a Lincoln. Yeah, so it's a Lincoln Navigator. URPC, it looks like a 08. But it could be an O, I don't know. But this is a pattern, right? There's multiple of these cars documented before where there's a number either at the beginning or at the end of the vanity plate. Like Britos 1 is a notable vehicle in this category, right? But maybe they're doing this to get me out of here, right? It's possible. But I'm not going to fall for that. I'm going to go back. So anyhow, I like this. So teal point. So, everything that is point is pointy, right? But it has a no trespassing sign. I'm not going to give them any excuse to detain me. But that looks interesting, I have to tell you. So, yeah, we have to think about that. Okay. Yes, so the second TTP is the following, right? When I get there, if they cannot get me with the cameras, then what they will do, they will send 1 or 2 people to send packages, right? But the goal of these people is really not to send packages, is to be there. And when I leave, right, so the pattern is the following. When I drop the package, right, and the attendant that is, attending to the FedEx office, this has spy glasses. When the attendant, brings the package, so she says, well, thank you so much for your business. And, she basically prompts me to leave, right? In a polite way, right? But she doesn't take the packages back to the back of the office. She leaves them in the counter. And right as I'm leaving, somebody else arrives to send the package. I imagine what happens after I leave is that the attendant makes a mistake, a security mistake, in the sense that she leaves the package, the label visible, right? And this person is doing something with their phone, like sending a text message to somebody or playing a game, waiting. But the phone has the camera enabled, as the Communist Party of China like to do. And that camera captures the label, right? Takes a picture of the barcode in the label. And then immediately the Chinese know where this package is going, right? Because they can track it. And that gives them plenty of opportunities to intercept the package. So I imagine, right? That's how they do it. Okay, so this guy is important, obviously, right? And this guy is Whiskey Delta Charlie 5465. 5465. It's a Jeep, white. Okay. So yes, so I think that's the TTP, right? So the attendant doesn't really take the packages to the back, and then this other person that is dispatched to either pick up or send something gets an opportunity to capture with the camera the labels, right? So yesterday, because this is going to the Pentagon, I politely asked the lady, please, could you take it back to the back? Because these are important documents, and I don't want them to be. I wouldn't like them to be. I was very polite with her, and she complied. She said yes, of course, and she took it to the back, right? So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they can still, the Chinese, right? I'm sure they can still get it, get the tracking number, But I mean, and their goal with it, I mean, I'm going to publish it anyways, right? But their goal with it is to get the tracking information as soon as they can, right? Because every second counts when they're, going to do this interception, right? Every second could be the difference between, the life or death of the regime, I imagine. So, or multiple regimes, right? So every second matters. But, they will have to ask the lady to bring the package back, right? And somebody could be watching, right? I don't know. I imagine, right? Well, this is an interesting vehicle. Okay. So here, we're going to visit a place that is very important. Oh, yeah, this is equestrian. Yeah, so this is an equestrian thing. I see. That makes sense. Yeah, this is the place I'm looking for. The Jegura 4G, right? This is an important place for this network. I wonder who are the owners of these horses, right? I mean, they would be the equivalent of El Tuerto Andrade, right? But in this area. And this is the equestrian. You see, like, I documented this on demo, I think, M5. Yeah, it's the same layout, man. It's incredible. It's amazing. So standard. I mean, this thing is so standardized that it's funny, right? I mean, this street looks exactly like the street that is behind Lake Pony Estates. It's exactly the same layout. And all these equestrian properties, right? Or the house that is that street that is shielding, that road that is shielding the house of Michael Cohen near Tamaron, right? I imagine this is a countermeasure that they're deploying here, so I cannot pass, but it's gonna backfire because now I got this guy. So I don't know, like that's I guess that's the saddest part of all this, right? That some of these people that are working on this network are doing all this, right, to the world and to other people to own a horse. Like it's hard to comprehend. Like if you think of I don't know, maybe Kara Cheney Carter doesn't own horses, right? But at the end, right, what she's doing, harming children with vaccines, is at the end so some people can own a horse, right? I mean, it's sad, really. Anyhow, so those are the two TTPs that they do with FedEx. At least to me, right? That's how they get the packages. But I think with this thing that I did, sending those packages to the Department of Defense, I think that makes it so that it's not going to work. I'm looking for a house in this area, but I can't find it. I mean, I have it in my notes, but I can't find the number. Could it be this one with the flag? No, it's not this one. Yes, it is this one. 20623 is the house. This is the top here. So this is in this layout, if you transpose it with if you overlay it on top of the layout of the street that is next to Lake Pony Estates, this would be the equivalent to the tax accountant, right? I mean, it's a similar position in the layout, the same position in the layout. Yes. So let's see what else we have today. So that was, yes, we talked about that. Okay, so this is interesting, right? In the previous demo, I talked about, Richard Bell. Oh, by the way, let me tell you, let me start with this, right? So yesterday, as I was doing my demo, right, I was driving, right, back from FedEx, and I was doing the demo. But during that trip, I'm not going to say exactly when, and I was going to say this during the demo, but then I backed out of it because I wasn't sure, right? It could have been, I thought. Let me tell you why I didn't say it. Like I said, if you hear the demo, you will see that I say something like, "Let me tell you something." It's because I had received a message via short range from the informant. But I at the moment I didn't trust the message because, well, in this technology I'm running on the car, I cannot run all the verifications, right, on the for integrity. So I cannot be sure that if it's really the informant. or if it's the Chinese, injecting a message, because it could be them trying to confuse me, right? To make me make a mistake. So that's why I backed out and I didn't say it. But when I got home, I verified the message and it checks out. The message seems legit, right? It doesn't seem tampered with. And also, I did some checks on my offline systems. I didn't even check the internet, but only on the snapshots that I have, and it seems to be the case. So this is what happened. I was talking about, this TTP that they have, that they create two versions of the order, and then they switch them, right? If the target asks for the order, they give them the thing that is not really an order, but has order in the title, but it's not really an order. But if the DOJ asks for the order, they give them the real order that justifies the crimes. The taking the child, right, or taking the car, or whatever, right, or seizing the house. They give the DOJ the real order, right? So that's why they create two versions of the order, to be able to give one version to one party and one version to investigators if they ever get investigated, right? And that way, because the target is unlikely to talk to the DOJ directly, no party will know, right? It's information asymmetry. It's compartmentalizing the truth, right? They have two versions of the truth, one for the target and one for the DOJ or the FBI. So I was explaining this, right? And I was talking about specifically the index 7 and index 8 are in the examples I was mentioning, right? So I get this message via short range in the highway from the informant. Relayed through a series of people, right? I have a technology, like, I'm not gonna give the technology away, but the informant tells me, this is not the first time they do this in the docket. They have done this to you multiple times before. And, I didn't want to believe it because honestly, I missed this, right? I didn't see it. And despite all the technology I have. So I was tempted to say that yesterday, but I didn't say it because I thought it could have been the Chinese to make me look like an idiot, right? Like, so when I finally talk to authorities, this is not the case. And then I lose, they don't trust what I'm saying, right? Could be, right? In a way to undermine my credibility with authorities, right? So that's why I backed out and I didn't say it. But when I got home, I checked the integrity of the message, it checks out, and I also checked if it's the case, it is the case, right? So this is what they did, and I'm really sorry. I have to apologize to anybody who has been listening to these things because I missed this, right? I couldn't say it, but now I know. So they've done this multiple times. Let me give you the list, right? I have the list somewhere. Oh, sorry, I am a little bit, because I have all this in paper. Right? Yes, I have the list, okay? So it's true. I think, right, the glaring question here is how this person from the Venezuelan intelligence know what the crimes and the tampering with the docket that even that I'm the victim and the target couldn't see, right? Despite having developed technology to do it. This tells you that the judges are working for Diosdado Cabello. It's the only explanation, right? And the informant has them compromised in this way. So this is what they do. They create two versions, right, of the order. This is a TTP, and they've done it in reality multiple times. And I didn't know this, and the informant told me this yesterday. So let's start with the notice of entry, right? So they created this notice of entry temporary orders on October 10, and I've talked about it multiple times. But what I didn't notice is that they had put in the docket multiple notice of entries. This is not the only one, right? There's multiple of these. Multiple. And I'm going to give you the dates, okay? Yes. So the first one is 9/29. And the other one is 10/07. There's also another notice of entry. And this is funny because their orders, and this is confirmed by Troy Pickett on November 7th, I think it was, when he filed that document saying, yes, the orders were signed on October 15. So if the orders were signed on October 15, how could they be entered on 9/29, 15 days before, or in 10/07? 45 days before, or on 10/07, a month before, right? It's not possible. The orders cannot be entered before they're signed. So how were they entered, right? So they created these two fake notice of entry temporary orders before the orders were signed on the 15th. And so this is the same, right? If the DOJ asks for the notice of entry temporary orders, they will print the copy of, 1007 or, I don't know, 929, right? Now, I don't know exactly why they created two, but, they did, right? So there's only one set of temporary orders until that point, but there's three notice of entries, right? So there's one they would give to me, there's one they would give to the DOJ, and the other one, I don't know who they're planning to give it to, right? Maybe it's just to create confusion, maybe it's something else, I don't know, right? And this explains why Morgan Heimner was making all those demands on email that are not even in the draft that she gave me, because these are probably in the notice of entry that they created in this way, but they did not give me, right? So in one of those notice of entries, they have those provisions, right? So the goal is to find me in contempt, but they're gonna find me in contempt not with the orders that they gave me, but with these mysterious orders that I don't even know what they have, because they are contained in this notice of entry temporary orders of 929 or 1007, right? While what I'm looking at is the draft that Morgan Heimner filed on 1003, right? So I imagine if she made, so this gives me the answer, right? So she makes those monetary demands for which I'm accusing her of wire fraud on October 2nd over email, and I have this email, right? So this tells me that she felt that she was backed up by an actual order before October 2nd, because otherwise she wouldn't have made the demands. She must know that that's wire fraud, right? But she feels that it's not going to be wire fraud because she has this secret order that was entered before October 2nd. So I think the real orders, right, the ones that they're going to show the DOJ are the ones from 929. I mean, it says notice of entries, and it says 929. That's all it says, right? But it doesn't say exactly what was entered, right? It just says notice of entry. So that's the reason, right? So they created three in this case to create even more confusion, right? But the ones that they're going to show the authorities, I imagine, is the one from 929, because that would excuse them from or they think, right? It's going to save them from the wire fraud charges or accusations, right? But now it gets more interesting. In the message, the informant also tells me to look for the missing indices after the, what is that he say? Look for the missing indices after the entries. So I go to the docket and I look, and yes, there's a bunch of entries. Entries in this context means that the judge enters something into the docket, right? But it also could mean entry of an order, right? This is the guy I'm looking for, and the house is for sale, which is good. It's being sold by Homgay Polk, 832-390-8158, and she looks Asian. And this has the lion's marker on the entrance, and the address is 19715 Lake Stone Court. This is a very prominent, I came here specifically to look at this house. So I would recommend, so this is the equivalent of Eduardo Andrade, something like that, right? That level. El Tuerto Andrade, right? And this one as well. This one. The 19739 and the 19731 on the same street. These three houses. Those are the important ones. Okay. So yes, so he told me to look into the entries, right? So I did that, and so this is the TTP, right? So the pattern is the following: so the entry could mean that, the entry means docket entry in the context of this docketing system means that the judge enters something. It's not a document that in either of the party filed. It's just something the judge entered into the record. Okay. But then, inside that entry, the Judge Telfair made a few of these, and he put in the entry itself, he put entry. And this word, in this context, implies that it's an order, right? And then, after that judge docket entry that says entry, there is an index that is missing. Arguably, this is really an order, right? So this judge entered orders into the record that are secret, that are hidden, the index numbers are missing completely, right? They're not even there. so I cannot see them, right? And they did not serve these orders to me. I imagine, and I think there's 3 of them. So I imagine this corresponds to the notice of entries. You see, so they create the secret orders. The judge enters the TTPs. The judge enters something into the docket, right? The order. He seals the order and disappears disappears the next index number, because if you analyze this docket, I'm talking to the authorities, right? If you analyze this docket, you will see that when the judge enters an entry, not an order, but like a docket entry in general, it doesn't generally take an index number. And you can see this with Judge Bell on early April 2025, right? So what they do is that the judge, so when they enter, the way the system works, right? When the judge enters a docket entry, it doesn't take an index number generally. But in these docket entries of Telfair that say entry, right after the next logical index number is missing, right? That means that there's a document that is hidden, that it's sealed. Okay, they disappear the document, either by legit or illegit means, I don't know, right? But so there's a few occurrences of this, right? And I think there are 3 of them. Let me see. Yes, there are 3. Yes, I think there are 3. Yes. So there is an entry on 10/15, right? And after that entry of docket entry, which is, Judge Telfair fabricating the void order, basically, right? That I've been appealing all this time. But, apparently I'm appealing the wrong order, because they have a secret order that I didn't even know existed, because they didn't serve it and they disappeared from the docket, right? And then they created this notice of entry afterwards that they didn't serve to me either, right? So the first entry is on October 3rd. It's October 3rd, and it says 9 a.m. That is all it says. It says entry 9 a.m., right? And this was supposed to be a hearing originally, right? But I think they rename it. They changed the content of the docket entry, and they put the word entry. But I think, if I recall correctly, there was a hearing or something scheduled for 10/3, right? But for some reason, it could not. Oh yes, because I think there was a pending. I don't recall exactly why, but the hearing couldn't take place. So what they did, they took that space and they turned it into an entry, right? They tampered with the docket and they turned this into an entry, which means order, right? Implying that there's an order. There was no order. And then the next index is missing. The index, that would be index 70. So I'm giving you this information, to the authorities, so you have a blueprint on how to get them, right? So this mysterious entry that Judge Telfair put in the docket on 10/3 is followed by a missing index number 70. Okay. On the same line of thinking, the entry of 10/15 is followed by the missing docket index 88 is also missing. So you see, after Telfair creates a docket entry that mysteriously says only entry and doesn't say what was entered, there is a docket index missing, right? But I think even here the TTP was badly executed, because if you see this entry thing that they put in the docket is on October 3rd. But Morgan Heibner was making the monetary demands on October 2nd, right, the day before. So even if they put the order in there, how did Morgan Heibner know what the order contained a day before it was entered, right? It's impossible. She must have been in collusion with the judge, right? If they did it this way. Now, if they put it on the entry that says notice of entry, that it's placed on 9/29, that would give Morgan Heibner a cover. Okay. But again, all these orders are void because they were never served and they were hidden in the docket. I didn't even know they existed. Right. But so that's the TTP, basically, and you can. And this is important because it shows a pattern of racketeering between Judge Telfair, Judge Bell, and the clerk, because the three of them have been involved in multiple instances of the same operational procedure, right? So the operational procedure is to basically create multiple versions of the order, right? And then depending on who asks for it, if I ask for it, they will give me the notice of entry temporary orders that is a hearing, that is a notice of hearing, right? That is not really an order. And I will complain saying that they're tricking me, right? But the order does exist. It's only that it's not that document. They have a different version that if authorities come knocking on the door, they will give that to the authority, right? And this makes it look legit, right? I mean, this is a person that is really crazy, right? I mean, the authorities are not going to go digging into all this. And even if they do, they will, give them the other document. Like, it doesn't, the existence of the other document doesn't mean that this one is not real, right? So that's basically how it works. You see? 1 sec. Okay.
1,000 feet. Turn left on 2 Farm to Market Road 2920 Road.
Yes, let me look at my. Yes. So the next item I have is, how to get Richard Bell. Because, I talked in the previous demo about Richard Bell and, the index number 7, number 8, and all that, right? Which is the same thing that they were doing with this other index 70 that is missing and index 88. It's the same thing, right? There is an index missing, which is the real order. And then if I ask for a copy of the document, they will give me the fake document, right?
Now turn left onto Farm to Market Road 2920 Road.
But you may have the question, authorities, how do we get Richard Bell, right? It's easy. It's really simple. What you have to do is you have to talk to Gloria Espina or Zuleima Villamizar, like she goes by the two names, and who is the petitioner, right, in this case, and ask her one question only. All you have to do is ask this simple question. You have to ask her if she had ever met Judge Richard Bell before May 15. And if she says yes, the follow-up question you need to ask her is, what did they talk about? And if the judge issued an order in that occasion, okay? And when was that? And this will get him, right? Because to fabricate the order, the index number 8, right, which is the real order, he has to have something, right, to justify taking that extreme measure of removing the child from the home, right? And that could be the testimony of the victim, right? In this case, the petitioner, right? So where she goes to the court and she says to Richard Bell that I'm crazy and that I'm getting violent, and she feels physically threatened, and she needs to be safe, and she needs she wants the child to be safe from, my aggressive behavior, I guess, right? Something like that, right? Something that would justify that. And then the judge grants the temporary restraining order, right? But he cannot do this on a vacuum. He needs to have something to back it up. And that something has to be her testimony, because there's nothing else. Like, there's no police reports, there's no incidents of violence, right? I'm a scholar, like I don't have a traffic ticket before the escalation of the Chinese harassment, right? But before that, I didn't even have a traffic ticket, right? A speeding ticket. So there's nothing they can use to justify that action, right? So the only thing is her testimony. So I'm betting that she went with Morgan Heimler and talked to him. And that's why, and let me tell you something, I know this for a while, right? But, and this is the reason why I never asked her this question. Because I could have asked, think about it, right? I could have asked her over the last year whether she knew Richard Bell before we met him on May 15, where supposedly was the first hearing, right? She would have to answer the question, right? But she can lie to me, right? She can tell me no or yes, or I don't want to talk about it. Well, she always tells me that she doesn't want to talk about the case, precisely to avoid this question, right? Because she doesn't want me to ask this question, because she would have to answer. But the DOJ or the FBI or whoever, right? They can ask this question to her, and she will have to tell them the truth, right? Otherwise, So if she met with Richard Bell, if she says, yes, I met with Richard Bell and I gave testimony on the aggressiveness of Reynaldo, or whatever, right? That I'm delusional, whatever she says, right? Because I mean, she has the right to think that I'm delusional. I mean, she's not obligated by any law to believe what I'm saying, right? But if she gave that testimony, that means that Judge Bell really signed that temporary restraining order. And remember, I have a certified copy, certified by the clerk, saying that the index number 8 is not a restraining order, is a notice of hearing. I have that copy, right? So if she gave that testimony, right, then how they're going to justify that this didn't result in a real temporary restraining order, right? They will have to bring the temporary restraining order out, right? And now I will have two conflicting documents, one that is a real TRO and one that is a notice of hearing, right? So of course it will become obvious what they're doing, right?
Now turn right onto Farm to Market Road 2920 Road.
It will become obvious, right? So it's easy. It's really easy to get them, right? Because she cannot lie. She cannot lie about whether she met him or not. I mean, she can lie to me, but she cannot lie to authorities, right? And then, if there was a hearing, the next logical question is now to Richard Bell, right? Why was the respondent not called to this hearing, right? I mean, I was never invited to this hearing. I was never served. In fact, I was only served, and this is visible in the record, I was only served on the 16th, right? So 2 weeks, or I don't know, a week after this potentially took place, right? This hearing, this hypothetical hearing potentially took place. Only a week after I was served. So why was I not served before the hearing? Why was I not notified of the hearing when there's no incidents of violence, there's no police reports, there's nothing, right? There's nothing to justify that I cannot be present on my own defense and assist on my own defense. So this will get Richard Bell, right? This will get him squarely. So all you have to do is talk to Suleiman Villamizar, who in these documents file as Gloria Espina, and ask her that question, that simple question, right? If she met with, or if she spoke with Richard Bell, could have been a Zoom meeting, I don't know, right? Could have been remotely, could have been in person, I don't really know. But if she met with him, if she talked to him, what did they talk about, and all those things, right? And that will tell you, right? So it's not a difficult thing to do, to get Richard Bell, right? And now I have the certified copy of the index number 8, which they already committed to giving me the fake one, right? So, and by the way, this document index number 8 is stored in the Google Cloud bucket under the DOJ folder, under Judge Richard Bell subfolder is in there, right? So you don't even have to go to the court to get the document. I have the fake version of it stored. Yes. So, yes, the other thing I want to talk about is an incident that happened with John Michael. So this is the agent on the house next door. He's Russian, right? Obviously. 2310 Britton Ridge Drive, Katy, Texas. That's the house, right? So I've noticed that in the last few days, 5 or 6 days ago, he started doing again the live transmissions to Joel Gray's house. And he had stopped with that before, but he resumed, right? And I've noticed that it was when I was doing a specific, when I was signing into a specific websites. Like if I sign into Lulu, he will start doing this. If I sign into the bank, he will start doing this. If I sign into letter stream to send a letter, he would start doing this, right? So it was a specific website. So it got into my head that he might have been sniffing the uplink of the antenna, because there's no other way to know, right? I mean, that quickly. As soon as I made the first request to chase, he would start blinking the light, right? Give me just 1 second. So, okay, here's another one for sale. This is an important property. This is being sold by the Mike Seder Group, 281-602-8823. And this is also, this is a huge This is a huge property, right? It's an equestrian ranch. Wow. Well, it looks like multiple properties, right? There's probably one for sale. I don't know. Anyhow, yes. So I got into my head that he might have been sniffing the uplink, right? So I started looking at he had drilled some holes in the fence before, right, to kind of create leakage of signal. But I've noticed 2 or 3 days ago that he increased the size of the holes. So he drilled further, right? And this is what probably what made the difference, right? Because they got desperate, they drilled the holes bigger to get more leakage, and then he was successful. And that's why now he could start doing again the blink, right? So anyhow, this is when I started filing the patents. Is basically when they did this, right? They hadn't done it before, but they did it when I started filing the patents. Look, there is a huge antenna next to this equestrian neighborhood, right? So this tells you what's going on, right? Oh, and they have horses next to the antenna as well. Anyhow, yeah. So this tells you, right, what is going on. So after I started filing the patents for the patent applications. John Miko, the house next door in Lake Von State, drilled the holes bigger, right? And in response, what I did, I increased the coverage because at first I thought, well, maybe I can put another plank on top of the holes, but I mean that's like putting a bandage on a, like they will just drill another hole, right? Like that's not a solution. So I realized what I have to do is protect the signal closer to the source of the signal, so closer to the antenna, right? And remember, I already had built a vault made of wood surrounding the antenna. So what I did is I increased the coverage of the vault. I put more planks to make it taller, to make the fence taller, that fence that is protecting the antenna, and I put sort of a smaller roof on top of it, right? A small roof that covers the antenna partially, right? So I'm leaving only the smallest possible section of antenna on cover, right, to reduce the leakage. But something interesting happened here. And here I have to tell you, I don't know if this is a thing, but immediately, so what I did, right, let me tell you my procedure, right? I start putting planks and I go inside, connect to the internet, run a speed test on the connection and check the speed. Because I need to measure, right? I mean, there's a trade-off. If I cover the antenna too much, there's going to be a point where there's going to be no connection, right? If I completely cover the antenna, there's no internet, right? So there is a trade-off between coverage and speed, right? And it's inverse. The more coverage, the less speed. So what I do, I put more planks, I increase the coverage, and I measure the speed, right? And at the beginning, I see this. I see a decrease in speed. The first 2 or 3 planks that I increase the coverage by. But then I say, well, if this is the case, I'm going to go all the way. And I put all the planks I could. I mean, all the planks I had. And when I did this, the speed of the connection increased by 4x. It got multiplied by 4 instead of reducing, right? So I don't know how this is possible. I mean, I have less coverage, right? I mean, I have more coverage on top of the antenna, so less exposed space on the antenna, but I have higher speed than ever before. So I don't know. It could be that the leakage allowed them to capture the signature and they have some sort of a jamming device, right? That introduces interference that, makes the connection flaky or reduces the accuracy of the connection. I don't know, it's a theory, but it's the only explanation I can think of why putting more coverage on top of the antenna makes the connection even faster. But not by a little bit, but by 400%, right? Anyhow, the aftermath of this sequence was that immediately as I'm putting the planks, a white van unmarked without any logos or anything pulls into the garage of John Miko, right? I imagine to either remove equipment or recalibrate it. I don't know exactly what they were doing, but the reaction was immediate, right? As soon as I started doing this, this white van came in with this. I think it was a couple of men, and they started doing something, right? I don't know what they were doing. But anyhow, that's the saga with the antenna coverage, right? So now the antenna has better coverage, is more protected, and the Communist Party of China has less chances of intercepting the patent applications. So that's the current status with the antenna. Okay. Now, thinking of this thing with antenna, right? I have to tell you, there's an obvious thing that I haven't said before, but it's kind of obvious, right, at this point, is that, well, let me tell you my thinking, right? My thinking is, all these satellite antennas that the Communist Party of China has in all these houses, right, strategically placed. One implication of this is, one second, because I have a guy following me very closely when I get in here. Yes, so in Katy, for example, right, they have thousands of satellite antennas, right, and they are all these guys as DirecTV or Dish, right, these satellite services, right. But there is an obvious implication on this, right? Is the following. I know by this point how the Communist Party of China uses this, dual use technique, right? Where they take one thing that has a normal use, but they also give it a second use, right? So in this case, the satellite antennas, right? So think of this, right? If the FBI came looking into Katy, right, and looking at these houses that have these antennas, they will check if these houses are really subscribed to DirecTV, right? And most of them are DirecTV. Some of them say Dish, but most of them are DirecTV. So the FBI would check, right, if these houses are really subscribed to those services. If they're not, this would be a giveaway. Like this would immediately let the authorities know. I mean, they could check this even with the satellite imagery, right? Just by detecting the antennas and seeing if there's an active subscription of DirecTV in these houses, right? Or by the orientation, right? Sometimes the antennas have the wrong orientation for DirecTV, right? And I've checked this with software. So anyhow, the line of thinking is that I imagine these houses really have DirecTV subscriptions, right? But the antennas, this is interesting. There's a lot in here full of FedEx trucks. This is amazing. Look at this. So look, it's full of FedEx trucks that are well painted, right? So these are well maintained. But I mean, this is not a FedEx facility. And it has, you can see the antenna that I'm talking about right mounted on top, right? On top of that house, right? So this is Angels Express Auto Service. Notice the religious name marker, right? I came here to see this specifically. So I imagine these are the decoys, right? These are the fake FedEx, trucks that they use, right, to intercept signals and do things, right? It's crazy. Because I mean, FedEx wouldn't bring their trucks to Angel's Auto Service, right? Obviously, with an antenna on top provided by the Chinese intelligence. Anyhow, the thinking is that these houses must have active subscriptions, right? But because the antennas have to be oriented in ways that are really aligned with the Chinese covert network, not with DirecTV service. So DirecTV has to know that these subscribers are not really active. I mean, it's impossible that they can be really watching TV and at the same time routing all these messages for the Chinese. It's not possible, right? So DirecTV has to have, they have to have an IT department or a security department, I don't know, right? They must know that there's thousands of subscribers that are paying a subscription but are not using it, and they're all in Katy, right? How is it possible that they don't audit this, right? That nobody is looking into this from DirecTV, right? I imagine because it's heavily compromised, right? Yes. So that's the obvious implication. The other obvious implication on the thing with John Michael is the installer that installed my Viasat antenna. He has to be in it, okay? And I'll tell you why. Well, first of all, the car had all the features, right? And so much so that when he came to install the antenna, I started looking at his car, and he kind of got upset. He told me, "What? Do you like the car?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's a beautiful truck, you know." But I was looking at the car because of the features that it has. Okay, so they block the street, so now nobody can pass. Right? This is funny. Okay, so what they want me is to go back, really, but I'm not gonna go back. I learned by now that what I have to do is to go forward. So anyhow, yes. So you have to, yeah. So the guy got upset, right? Because I was looking at the car. Now, I have to tell you, right? When he came, I asked him. So there's three. Viasat has 3 satellites that are visible from my home, and I asked him if he could point my antenna to a specific satellite, which I realized from a technical point of view that give me the highest security, the lower chances of interception. And he said that it could not be done. He tried, but it wouldn't calibrate. I imagine he was just faking it, right? He wasn't really doing it. And because he wanted me to point the antenna in the direction where it is right now, because it allows for the creation of the hotspot in front of the house of Gary Gray, right? So what he was doing was intentionally placing the antenna in a way that would allow these people to do these interceptions or attempt them for the last, 4 or 5 months. So that's what he did, right? So he has to be in it. Now, I have to tell you, the way I wanted to point the antenna originally, let me see if I can look at the map, because to tell you this the right way, right? Yes. So basically, the other satellite is on the opposite direction. The other Viasat satellite that is visible from that point is on the opposite direction, opposite to Gary Gray's house. So basically, aligning it with the rotation of the Earth, right? And I'm telling you this not because to talk about my antenna, but to tell you a security pattern that I think is a thing, right?
1 mile. Turn right onto US 290.
So the most secure alignment for an antenna, satellite antenna, is on the direction of the rotation of the Earth. Why? Because the signal will spill on the direction of the rotation of the Earth. So an interceptor really would have no way to distinguish your signal, to distinguish between your signal and the signals, the other signals that might be spilling on the direction of the rotation of the Earth, right? So if you align your antenna east to west or west to east, it's safer, right? And depending on if you pick east to west or west to east, think about it, right? It makes the uplink safer or the downlink safer. Not necessarily the two at the same time. But this is funny because this is actually a signal of detection that I use to rank the houses, right? And the agents. So the ones that have their antennas pointing east to west or west to east are more important, obviously. Like they handle more secure communications than the others, right? But anyhow, so what I wanted to give you with this comment is 2 things. One, that the Viasat installer has to be in it, right? And second, that I could have taken that wrong. And the second thing is that this security pattern, right? Actually 3 things. The second is security pattern, right? If you're gonna buy a Viasat service, try to point towards, trying to align your antenna east to west or west to east. And if you are the FBI or the DOJ trying to get these people and to understand who's who, look for the houses that have the antennas aligned east to west or west to high. East to west or west to east. East to west or west to east, yes, exactly. So that's the pattern. So in that simple thing, you have 3 powerful observations. And, the one that can confirm that all this is like this is the installer that installed my Viasat antenna at Lake Point State. The other one was doomed from the beginning because the proximity of the houses is, the houses are 30 feet away, right? So, I had no way to escape the interception at Valley Side. But at Lake Point Estates, they had to really pull off the installer, right? Because otherwise, I would be uninterceptable, right? My communications. So they couldn't allow that to happen. The Chinese. So we talk about the... Yes. Yes, where do you point your antenna to? Okay. The next thing is Goldman Sachs, Marcus. So when I sent, I described this in one of the demos before, I sent notices to the financial institutions alerting them about the potential of wire fraud coming from Troy Pickett with the void order for supposedly income withholding. And I sent that to Goldman Sachs. And I have a bank account that I opened with Goldman Sachs, Marcus, right around that time, right? So they are obligated to process my notice, right, with the legal and compliance departments. So what they did is that they sent me an email saying that they needed to talk to me in person to get more information about my account, for my account, right? I imagine this is a move by the legal department, right? To get me on the phone to ask me questions about my income or, something, right? My employment situation, what I'm doing, whether I was employed by Goldman Sachs, something, right? To get me on the record saying something that then they can weaponize. I don't know exactly what it is, but I imagine, right? I opened the account and I put $100 in the account. Why are they? I mean, they have my social security number because they employed me. They have no reasons to doubt I'm me, right? And they know I live in Katy. Oh, so we're at the Buckies. Very interesting place. Okay, so here we're gonna get a lot of data, and of course they're blocking the entrance, right? This truck.
Now turn right.
Yes, so this is like the laundering machine of Diosdado, right? You know that already.
In 500
We talk about this multiple
destination
times.
will be on the right.
This is why this gas station is always teeming with people and life and cars and Chinese cameras and all that. It's a very interesting place. It's like a different world. It's a world of success without effort, you know?
In 500 feet, your destination will be on the right.
Wow. Look at how many cars they have in here. It's amazing. No, this is like a depot. Like this is not a gas station. Look, they have the cars parked in the perimeter. I mean, who is going to park the car almost half a mile away from the convenience store, right? Or the pumps? What are these cars doing here? Like you have to ask yourself that question. What are all these cars doing here? I don't know. It's a depot. It's a car depot. Okay, so I'm gonna get this one. Actually, this is interesting. So you see, all the Teslas are either. I should pick this smartly. 1 second. Let me see. What is the best way for me to do this? I guess the best way for me to do this is parking next to this Cybertruck. Yes, this is the best spot. To get this, I got him. He got upset. He looks Russian, by the way. He looks a little bit like that from the guy from the Rocky movie, Igor, I think it's called. Maybe his name is Kilpatrick. I don't know. Could be. No, but he's older. He was an Igor maybe 20 years ago. 1 second, okay? Okay. So we are almost at 1 hour 40 minutes mark. But we'll keep going, okay? Because this is a very boring meeting. Yes, so Goldman Sachs pulled out that thing of asking me to call them to ask questions about my account. Yeah, now let's get the plate of this guy. 1 second. Oh, he moved strategically. But the play BEEJELLEE, so like B Jubilee, Bravo Echo January Lima Echo. And BEE is a prominence marker in the plates. Like all the plates that say BEE, vanity plates in Texas at least, are important people. And I have like, I don't know, I have a data set of them, of maybe like 30 or 40 of them. Most of them located in the Cinco Ranch 2 subdivision. But this guy is over here. Okay, so we talked about DirecTV. The next thing, I want to give you the case numbers of the 2 bullets that they have. I think I gave you one of the case numbers before, but not the other. So one of the case numbers is 25-JCR11 39187. That is the citation for the supposedly blue flashing lights in the SUV, in the armored vehicle. They're not blue, they're white, but the police officer said they're blue, and that I was impersonating a police officer. And then the other case is 25-DCV 330324, and this is the case of Lake Point Estates versus my company. And speaking of that, I'm showing you here this envelope that I just got today. It's a FedEx envelope again, sent to the company, and they're putting me as registered agent. And it's a FedEx envelope, and this is, let me give you the tracking number of this, if I can. Oh, the tracking number is not visible, I think. Let me see. Okay, it's this one. It's 88. Sorry, something is not going here. 1 second. Okay, well, let me finish this part. So the tracking number is 8895 3179 4470. Okay, and it's an envelope, and you imagine it's one of the harassment letters of like Pony States with the attorneys, right? With the RMB. Yeah. So this is coming from Heather Campbell at RMWBH, 2800 Post Oak, floor 57, Houston, Texas, 77056. Let's see what it says. It's a notice of oral hearing for March 24 at 9 a.m. via WebEx, sorry. But again, they're serving this to me and not to the company, right? This is a corporation in Delaware. They have to serve that to Delaware, not to, to the registered agent, not to me. 1 second, okay? Okay, I'm back. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm just charging the Tesla because this is a long session, very boring. Okay, so I gave you the 2 case numbers. So yeah, so they sent me the notice of hearing for the 24th, right? More harassment, basically, what the informant told me yesterday, right? They're gonna keep pushing that. Now, and remember, like this law firm. I mean, I reported them to the IRS, to the OFAC, to the FBI. Like, it feels like beating a dead horse at this point. Okay, next. After I haven't said this, but after I realized of the existence of the L2 vehicles and how this, hierarchical system is built. I realized that the vehicles at Valleyside Drive, like the Chinese agents in front, so the 26711, 26707, Valleyside Drive, and Michael Pretty at the 26718, Valleyside Drive, all their vehicles are categorized as L2s. This is the reason why when I go to Valleyside, they park their vehicles in the driveway, because these vehicles are equipped with what's necessary to exfiltrate the audio from this car, right? So it's that's the reason why they park them in the driveway, to get the audio of whatever I said when I arrive or when I leave. That's the reason. So all their cars are L2s, and I know this because of the plates, right? So all the plates trigger the models that categorize the L2s in my system. I mean, the plates of those vehicles next to my house in Valleyside Drive. Of all the vehicles, the highest ranking vehicle, according to my models, is the white Tesla of the 26707. That's the highest ranking vehicle. On another thing, the informant told me that the C7000 cluster, which this is ironic, is bugged, right? And it has been bugged for since I got it, right? For reference, I got this at SeverMonkey in Houston, which is of course marked in the index of Diosdado Cabello. I didn't know it back then because I didn't have the index, but now I have it and I can see that it's marked. And I got the blades, the servers themselves, from eBay, all of them. I got like something like 18. So this has 16 slots, but I got 2 more. So I got 2 spare servers. All of them from eBay. So, Pierre Omidyar basically, sent me the servers with the special ingredients inside. So I wanted to tell you that I got that from the Venezuelan informant, which is on itself interesting, right? Because how he knows what Pierre Omidyar does with eBay. Yes, one small detail I wanted to give you on that the rules that they did of moving the billing of the water of Valleyside Drive from a company to Inframark. I didn't tell you what the company was before. The previous company was EDP. E as in Echo, D as in Delta, P as in Papa, and the new company is Inframark. And again, the rules here is that they mark my house as vacant in USPS, so I don't get any mail. Step 2, they switch the water from one provider to another, and therefore they cancel my billing account and they ask me to create a new billing account. But they send me this on a letter via mail, which they had blocked by marking my house as vacant. So I never get this. I don't know that I have to set up that billing, right? So then the house accrues water bills for a couple of months that I don't know that even exist, because I think that I have this on autopay on the previous company, but they switched it, right? And I don't know about it. And then after a couple of months, or what they need really, when they want to evict me, then they trigger a water disconnection. And then they get a judge to sign an order to evict me from the house because it doesn't have running water. And in Texas, that's the law, right? If a house to be habitable, it has to have running water. So if the water is cut, you can be evicted. That's the TTP. So again, but the important thing here is that the company that they moved the billing from was EDP, and they moved it to Inframark. Another thing that I have on my notes is that on February 28th, that this was the date when I went to Target to buy the video game for my son. In this occasion was when Zuleima Villamizar / Gloria Espina got photographed by the cameras taking photos of the car. And this is what triggered my escalation that came after, right? On that occasion, I was followed very closely by a woman driving a black Mercedes. And this is visible in the footage of that day. And this was in Westheimer Parkway. Now, the interesting thing is that this woman, the face of the woman, the facial features match very well the facial features of the woman that is always driving that white SUV on Lake Point Estate trying to intercept, or was. I think they changed her already, but back in 2024, that woman that was driving the white SUVs, I think the last footage I have from her face, is from something like January of this year, I think. I have to check. But anyhow, the woman that was following me on the black Mercedes that day of the incident of the Target is the same woman that constantly was driving the white SUV at Lake Point Estates trying to intercept the downlink of the antenna. It's probably the same woman. The confidence score is 0.79, which is high. Okay, next thing I'm going to tell you, motion sensor. I mean, this is just a silly comment. Something I discovered could be a pattern, right? Could be something, it could be a design pattern that could help people, right? So, what I do is that I use computer vision to inform, first of all, to train behavioral models and then to make predictions, right? To flag people or vehicles behaviorally. And also, I have other models that I train and then use to do predictions on features of the cars, features of the people, things like that, right? So one of the things that I have, right, I use this technology for, is to flag the vehicles that drive in front of my house trying to intercept the link, right? And this is easy to train because I have the data of the connections. I know when the internet is connected, right? So I have the timestamps and I know how the car is behaving, right? So I can correlate the two things and find features in the cars and find behavioral patterns like the speed, the trajectory, things like that, that tell me that this is an interceptor, right? But anyhow, and with that, what I do with that is when I detect an interceptor, I cut the connectivity of the antenna, right, automatically. And this way they cannot intercept it because if there's no internet, there's no signal, right? So I have a system that turns it on and off when it's a vehicle that is likely to be an interceptor. So anyhow, this is how it works, and I had very good precision. But then what happened was I installed these other cameras that I think the Chinese directed me to buy at Micro Center. And these cameras have a different feature that I didn't have before, which is a hardware motion sensor attached to a light. So basically, when something passes in front of the camera, the camera turns on a light, like a LED, okay, like a white light that is very bright. But the thing that I discovered is that if I turn that into a feature, it increases the precision of the system by immensely. I don't know. It's obvious, right? It's obvious why, but it seems to me like a good thing to share, right? That I discovered that this could be used in this way. So the idea is, when the light of the camera turns on, there is a small variation on the brightness of the image, right? And this depends on the time of the day. Like at night, there's a big variation, right? Because then you can see it's dark, and then the light comes on, and then you can see, right? So there's a huge variation there. But during the day, the variation is tiny, right? But it's still detectable with software. So the pattern is when you see this variation and a car is passing by, and you add this as a feature to your training models, and this increases the precision a lot. If you want to understand why, it's because this is a hardware sensor that is very fast. I mean, it's faster. This sensor will get things in microseconds, right? It will detect motion in microseconds, because all the electronics are very close, right? While my system is a software-based system that has a processor, has a memory, so the software has to run, so I can do it in milliseconds, but not microseconds, right? So this is orders of magnitude faster, and it's a hard signal. There's motion, right? So I don't have to be analyzing. I mean, if you want to think about it, it makes the model more efficient because the model really can use this as a prerequisite in the sense that, if there's no motion, there's nothing to analyze, right? But if you detect motion, then you do the analysis, right? So this saves a lot of processing power and also removes a lot of false positives from the training data. So it makes the precision of the model much, much higher. But more on the higher level of thinking, the pattern here is to pair AI with hard sensors, right? And this increases the precision immensely. That's why they can't intercept that signal, right? Not even with the planes, because now the planes trigger, they're doing this thing where they're flying this plane at low altitude. It's funny to watch, right? They're going crazy after I started following those patterns. The number of planes they're flying is 4 times more planes than before. So they fly in the planes. If you want to know visually, what you have to do is trace an imaginary line between my mailbox and the for sale sign of Joel Gray. That is the optimal intersection point, right? For the planes and the cars. So if you trace that imaginary lane and imaginary line, and you place yourself as if you're behind that line, that path is where they need to fly the planes by to get the signal, right? So now those planes trigger the sensors. The sensor is so sensitive that when the planes fly, they trigger the motion sensor. And now I get the planes with 100% precision. Before I would get them with 50% precision, right? But now I get them immediately. So now not even with the planes, they can intercept the antenna, right? The signal. So it's funny. But the pattern is pairing, machine learning with hard sensors, right? That gives you a precision that, for me at least, is unprecedented. I've never had this level of precision before. So, in a way, it's a gift the Chinese gave me because they promised me to buy these cameras that had this sensor, right? I didn't even know about that. Now, I want to tell you something about, this is more of a, I don't know how to categorize this, right? But I understood something yesterday when I saw the South Asian Daniel King Everett, right? And this is one of those things that I don't really know how to articulate them, right? And forgive me, I'm gonna make my best, right, to try to tell you what I'm thinking. But it's something like this thing that the Chinese are doing, in a way, lower the resistance of the agents to commit atrocities. It makes them be able to commit atrocities that or maybe otherwise they wouldn't. Let me tell you what I mean, right? So in the case of Daniel King Everett, right, the real one, the Russian agent, right? In 2024, he was harassing, right? But he would do this thing maybe 3 times a week or 4 times a week. I don't know. I don't have a counter, right, for this, but I don't know, maybe 4 times a week, right? Where there would be incidents of harassments that that when I experience them, I say to myself, I wish I could call the police, right? Of course I can't because I know that the police is working for Cesaro Cabello, but he would do this thing 3 or 4 times a day, right? A week, right? But now, after I captured the geo index, this was before I captured the geo index, right? So this was just the competition with WebMD because I was attempting to compete with WebMD, right? But after I captured the geo index and the Chinese escalated, now the incidents of harassments are daily, right? These people are driving the cars hundreds of times per day in front of my house, right? Trying to get to intercept. And if I go out, they come out and pass the car next to me, things like that, right? And if I go to the court, they take the phones out and start pointing the phones at me. You get the idea, right? So it's hard harassment at this point. But the reason why I'm saying this thing is basically, I think what they're doing is that they're sharding. This technology that they have, when I say technology, I mean the following, right? the houses with the obscure windows. If you see older houses, the windows are obscure in a way that you cannot see inside. Even the door, the front door, if it has a glass, it's obscure. You cannot see what is inside of the house. This is by design, so you cannot see their faces, so they can replace the agents, right? So what happened yesterday with the South Asian Daniel King Everett doesn't happen, right? Or the cars with the pitch black tinted windows, right? You see the car, but you don't see who's driving it, right? So the idea is that they replace the agents every 2 or 3 days, and a new agent comes in, right? And he does some harassment, right? And then they bring a new agent, and the new agent gets inside of that car with the pitch black tinted windows, and he does some harassment, right? And he's inside of that house, and he does some harassment. And then in 2 or 3 days, they bring a new agent, right? And that does some harassment. And so, but if you look at every agent individually, they are doing a little bit of harassment, each one, right? But if you have 30 agents working against one target, well, it's 60 times, it's 30 times the amount of harassment that this target is exposed to. This could drive a person crazy, right? But each agent individually is not seeing the complete picture. They're only seeing the little bit of harassment that each one of them is doing, right? So for them as agents, this lowers the barrier, this lowers the barrier of accepting what they're doing, because they say, well, yeah, I just harass him a little bit, 2 or 3 times. I'm not going to kill him with that, right? But you have to remember that it's not only you, it's 30 other people that are doing the same thing, and this person is exposed to that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year, right? And that could drive that person crazy. This charging of the harassment of the harassers, really, I think makes the harassment possible, right? Because otherwise the moral boundaries of these people could kick in, right? And they could say, no, I'm not gonna kill this person in this way, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why the harassment has to be charted. That's why they have to rotate the agents, right? So they don't become conscious of what they're doing collectively, right? I don't know. It's a complex. I hope someday I get a chance to talk to a specialist in sociology or something like that to tell me if this is what they're doing, right? Okay. The next item I have is about this is a theory. I don't know if this is the case, but it could be the case, right? I think what they're doing with it, you'll notice that when I drive, and they cannot, they lose track of me temporarily, right? They can lose track of me maybe for 1 or 2 minutes, right, at this point. But when this happens, there's always a commercial vehicle that when I pass next to it, it turns off the lights, the flashing lights they have, like the emergency lights, like the yellow lights, right? And, this dynamic, it happens always. Like when you see the footage, you'll see that this is a constant. And this made me wonder, well, what is that they're doing with this? Why? Those lights are not going to be visible from a satellite. I don't think so. And if they're visible from one of the Chinese computer vision cameras, it's pointless because, that means that the agent can see me. If the agent can see the flashing light, the agent can also see me. So why put the flashing lights, right? So here, an idea formed in my head. I don't know if this is what's happening, but it could be, right? So I'm going to say it in case it is, right? Technical people can look and see if this is what they're doing. So, for example, Daniel Parra, he had a company that installed GPS systems and telemetry systems on commercial vehicles. So the commercial vehicles, I know, most of them, like, for example, Halliburton vehicles are equipped with this. And I know this because I've driven those vehicles in Venezuela or Schlumberger, right? Those vehicles are equipped with telemetry that inform a centralized system, the speed, the revs on the engine, the temperature in the atmosphere, the temperature in the cooling system of the car, like a bunch of signals, right? And this goes via a cellular device to a centralized system, right, that collects this telemetry, and they use this for safety. Like, if the driver gets in trouble, if he's speeding, if he's drunk, like, they will know this the second it happens, right? This is what I think is happening, right? I think because they have telemetry on these vehicles, like the United Rentals trucks, is a good example, right? They have telemetry on those vehicles. When they turn on the lights, that creates a small power variation or current variation on the alternator of the vehicle or in the battery or in the telemetry system, I think, can detect small variations of current in the system. And these variations of currents have to correlate with the frequency of the flashing of the light. So you can modulate a signal into the telemetry of this. And this is another example of the dual use technologies that I was describing before when I was talking about DirecTV. This could be a way to send a signal to China about what's happening in Katy without having to send a text message or send an IP package, right? It's embedded into the telemetry of this car because the agent is trained that when you see the target, you press this button, right? And now the Chinese see this signal with this specific frequency that is embedded into this, emergency lights, the flashing frequency of the lights basically, and then the Chinese know the target is there, right? So it's not a difficult thing to pull off. Yes. The other thing I wanted to tell you, I was looking about the judiciary crypto wallets, and I think I found the Brown, which is an important one because Susan Brown, right? So this is a master plan community called Brown Ranch, and it's a 1,476 acre mixed-use master plan community by Heinz, located in Fort Worth, near Walsh Ranch, featuring residential, retail, and open space, situated in Parker County. And it aims to manage high-density growth with new planned infrastructure. So it could be, And it's, of course, marking the index, and the house is marking the index. The next thing I want to tell you, I made a comment yesterday, I think it was, about this TTP of placing the important agents, for example, the ones that work in the court and law enforcement, very close to the court and the police headquarters, right, for Wayne County, right? So they cannot be intercepted easily by the FBI. But here I realized something. If you look at that layout, it's very interesting. I mean, if you look at the road, the road that basically goes 90 degrees with, what is it called? Ransom Road, right? Which is ironic, right? But that road that connects Ransom Road with the Fort Wayne County courts and the police headquarters, that road is a straight line, and it has very few stops. And I think this is by design. I mean, these people not only live close to work, right, leaving little chances for interception, but also they have to make a small number of stops. There's not many stop signs or traffic lights in the way. It's a straight line with very few stops. And this is important because we know, because of what they do, that the stops is the prime way to get a target to intercept their cell phone signal, right, and to the recording and what they're talking about, right? So by making it this way, they really minimize the chance for interception. But this is interesting because this ties county planning, the infrastructure, the road construction and planning, with their operations, right? And this is also, this is actually a principle in network theory, right? I mean, this is the same thing I do when I plan my routes. I plan my routes in a way that minimize not the distance, but the number of force stops where I cannot escape, right? Where they will get me. So this is an interesting observation, right? And I have to tell you, I observed this pattern before in other places years ago. I mean, right after I captured the U index, and one notable example is United Healthcare. If you look at United Healthcare, their headquarters, both the ones they have in California and the other ones for CVS, right? Like the ones they have in Rhode Island, I think it is. The important people, like the executives, they live very close by, and they have this property. Like the trip between their house and their office is a straight line with very few stops. There's not a lot of turns, and there's not a lot of traffic lights, and there's not a lot of stops. So I'm saying this not to mention United Healthcare, which I should, right? Because they did all these healthcare rules against me and my family, but to tell you that this is a signal for detection, right? Obviously, what you have to do is the same thing as I mentioned before. Look in my website, find the important hubs, and in those hubs, find the family courts, the clinics, and the health insurance companies, and find the people that are marking the index that minimize the number of hops to get to work. Meaning that they have a straight line or very few turns with no stop signs and no traffic lights in between their marked homes in the geo-index of Teodoro Cabello and their marked workplace in the geo-index of Teodoro Cabello, right? Those are the most, not necessarily the top dogs, but the people that are doing the most criminal things, probably, right? So that's a good signal for detection that I found. So I'm gonna cut this demo because it's over 2 hours at this point, and I'm gonna make a new segment. Okay, 1 sec. Bye. Hi, just a couple of small additions. So in this area that I came to see today, where they have these, they have all the interceptor cars parked basically, the whites and the grays sedans. They have outside of the compound, the sequestration compound that they have an interesting tower with not one, not two, but 3 different point-to-point directional links. I mean, this is amazing, right? I mean, these people are so important. I mean, for whatever it is that they're doing, that has to be secret, that they have 3 different directional links next to the compound. Obviously serving the compound, right? Because there's no TV stations or telecom companies next to this. It's only the compound. So that's one thing that I want to tell you. The other thing is that I realized, I mean, I was just like, thinking about what I was talking about, the TTP of entering 2 versions of the order, 2 or 3, right, to be safe, what they're doing. And I had this, I was, hypothesizing on whether the real order was entered and subsequently hidden from the docket on September 29 or October 3rd. Right? These are the 2 times where there's a judge entry followed by a missing index number. And I think I hypothesized that it was 929 because that's when Morgan Heimler started making the monetary demands that are not anywhere written, right? And the goal here is to find me in contempt, to put me in jail. Right? It's not to get the money, it's to put me in jail because I cannot comply with something that I don't know exists, right? With an order that I was never notified that it exists. And because I'm not going to comply, because I don't know the existence of the clause, they can find me in contempt and they can put me in jail. Right? That's a way to put a person in jail without due process. That's what it is. But what I want to tell you is that I thought of something that I think gives me more signals that the actual order is the one on 929. The reason is in the backdated order, right, that Judge Telfair finally signs on the 15th when they see that they have no other choice because I filed the 3verified motion to recuse, Judge Telfair. He signs that order, right? And that order, the timestamp that has on top says 929, August 29. And he signs it on October 15 and doesn't file it, right? I think that's material and important. It's because that makes the timestamp of that draft that they backdated as an order to match 929, which is what the docket says for entry, right? So this legitimizes the backdated order because if an investigator come looking, they will see the entry 929 and they will see the first page of the order saying 929. They're unlikely to go to the signature page to see if the date matches, right? But 2 of the 3 things match. The docket, the clerk file stamp match. They say 929. So the investigator of the DOJ will think, yes, this is the order. And knowing how they operate, I imagine they probably, in the real order, they replace the date of the signature, right? So they probably have, a doctored version of the order that says in the signature 929. And this would make the 3 things match and pass an audit of the DOJ. Right? So I think this is likely to be the real order because they choose for the backdated order that one, right? Of course, they couldn't put the signature 929 because I would know it's not the truth, right? Like I would immediately file a document with the First Court of Appeal saying they're lying. They gave me a hearing to talk about the contested draft, and that hearing was supposed to take place on October 16, but then the order appears signed on 929, 15 days before, right? I would scream fraud, right, to everybody that listens. So they can do that. But I bet you that the hidden document that they have on that hidden index, I can't recall I think it's 70, right? Index 70, right? Yes. That thing that they have hidden probably has a doctor signature date that says 929. So that would make the 3 things match. And out of the 3 things, that's the easier one to doctor because it's just a bunch of pixels in an image. Like they don't have to change the the docketing system, right? They don't have to change the date in the docket. They don't have to change the date or the timestamp of the clerk, which is electronically signed. They only have to alter the image of the signature page, which is the last page, and it will match the certificate of service, which is issued by e-Tyler systems. So you see, this is how they do it. I think at this point, it's a mystery solved at this point, I think. But again, I'll wait for authorities to investigate these things and tell me if I got this right. I don't know. As an intellectual exercise, I would like to know if I got it right. Well, but beyond everything, right? Whether I got it or not, if I did get it, remember, who told me about this yesterday while I was driving on the highway was a person that works in the Venezuelan military intelligence. What business has this person knowing these details about what these judges in Texas are doing? You have to ask yourself that question, and you have to ask the judges this question in person. They have to answer why a person in Venezuela that works in intelligence knows the frauds they're committing. Right? We need to know the answer to this. Anyhow. Hi, I just want to add a couple of small comments that I remembered. One is about the Sharkies that is next to the Kroger, where that incident on January 25th happened. There was something that happened last week that was kind of, I understand what it was, but it was interesting, right? So it was that I asked Suleima if she could, cut take the kid to cut his hair. I didn't specify where, but like the last few times she's been taking him to the place that is next to Whole Foods, right? Because of the incident that happened in the Sharkies cuts for kids, right? And described before, this happened when I published a post about Wilmer Ruperti in the website. The child was targeted with a chemical agent at that place. So after that, she's been taking the kid somewhere else. But last week, I asked her to please, take the child for a haircut, and she took the child to the Sharkies again, right? And she brought him home with a balloon that said Sharkies. So I would see that she took him to the Sharkies, right? So I don't know. This could be one of two things, right? It could be a provocation, right, to see if I got upset and did something that could justify she's saying that I was being aggressive, right? Like if I yelled at her or something. Because if your child was targeted with a chemical agent at a place, and the mother takes him to the same place, you could get upset, right? It would be a logical reaction. It wouldn't be a crazy thing to get upset. But if I get upset, then she's gonna tell Judge Telfair that I'm being aggressive, right? And that could justify an action. Another void order, right, of some kind. So I don't know if it was that. Or the other thing that I thought that could be was that maybe they're seeing, imminent risk. That this could become public. And they are trying to create a narrative that she has no concern about Sharkies, that she didn't witness the chemical attack against the child, right? Or that she didn't think it was that he was just sick, right? That it had nothing to do with the place. In a way to protect, the only person this would protect would be Wilmer Ruperti, right? Because this happened when I published his name on the website, the very same day or the day after, I can't recall. So that's one observation. One thought that I had, right? And the other thing, I don't know, just a random thought, is about the switching of the orders. This dual order, or this dual version that they create, dual versions that they create for the void orders, to then show different versions of the same order to different people, right? Depending on who is asking for the document. I don't know, like seeing that, right, and how consistent that TTP is, it made me think of something. Like it feels at the end the same thing that they do with the food tampering at the point of sale, right, with the person that bags the groceries. It's the same thing, right? Like switching an item in a way or at a moment where you are not expecting that to be switched, right? Like where you're thinking that you have something in your hand, but it's not what you're thinking, right? It's not what you have in your hand is not what you think it is, right? Or what you're looking for is not what you really have in your hands. But it's the same technique, like deceiving you by switching the item, right? It's the same. At the end, it's the same, right? And I think there is. I mean, because these two things that seem very different, but they feel like they're very fundamentally they're the same thing. Like they're main weapons of attack of these people, right? And they're based on the same principle, which is deception by switching something. So I don't know. It feels like there's something there more fundamental that I'm not grasping, right? So I need to think more about that. And the reason why I want to understand exactly, what is the deeper meaning on that is because there might be other things that are switching, right? And I'm not seeing them, right? And that might be important. But in a way, right? It seems like a deception based on switching things. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that with you. And about that chemical targeting incident, targeting the child, if you're the authorities and you're investigating their crimes, you don't have to take my word for it. Morgan Heibner, the attorney of, Diosdado Cabello, she got this into the record. She mentioned this incident at one of the hearings. I think it was on the September 8th hearing, if I recall correctly. She got this into the record herself. So this is on the trial court, on the official record. It should be in the transcripts or in the recordings. So you can check, and well, if there's any doubt, you can look at the receipts. You can look at the transactions in the credit card of my former partner, because she took the child there when that targeting incident happened, and you can, I imagine, check the recordings of that. And ultimately, you can ask her, right, if the child suffered a severe respiratory affliction hours after coming back from the Charkies Cots for Kids. That I think was on February or March. No, it was on February. It could have been late February or early March, 2025. And you can check if that corresponds to the same date when I posted that entry in the website about Wilmer Ruperti. You will see that it's the same day or the next day. You will see.